Average guy, old stories hit high, tells of struggle and strife. Keep your head in the fight. Broken bones in the street, ain't no place for the weak. From the land of the brave, where the words cut deep. Coming next on the air, now feel the despair. Generation X, shout out, shattered somewhere. Rising up from the dark with a fire and spark. Rage and passion combined to leave a lasting mark. Coming next, shouting loud, voices from the crowd. Through the mist of...
All right, welcome to Common X Podcast with Jared and Ian. This is episode 31, and today's guest is Jeremy Montgomery. How you doing today, buddy?
Man, fighting to fight like everybody else.
Yeah, I hear you, man. So can you tell us about yourself and kind of what you're about?
Well, I learned a little bit about what you guys are doing, and it made some sense to maybe come on and tell the story about what we're trying to accomplish. So 23-year Air Force veteran, and really kind of got out of service, struggled a little bit, and saw that there was a gap in service there. And so we developed a bunch of programs to help place veterans into meaningful employment out there in corporate America. So part of a lot of organizations, and hoping to come on and just kind of explain why hiring veteran talent is a good thing and why it benefits the community in large. It benefits the individual. Really across the board, you end up with a whole bunch of win-wins. But Ian, if I could give you like one specific reason why I do what I do, because there's a myriad of logos that I represent for different reasons, but the holistic approach is there are three things that plague the military, and it's veteran suicide, it's divorce rates, and breaking up families, and then of course there's that unemployment and underemployment. And so as I put all of those things together, how do I positively impact any one of those things? I always kept coming back to the job. The job always seemed to be the foundation. And when there was a veteran that was capable of supporting themselves and that they were happy, it positively affected all of those things. So that's where I've kind of made it my life mission to be a positive voice and to create conduits for veterans to get into meaningful employment.
Wow, man, that's great. And thank you for your service.
No,
that's way cool.
Support.
So I hear Lean Synergy. Do you offer training to military veterans on like Six Sigma or anything like that? Or
we do. Great question. And it is a play on words. So if you look at Lean Synergy Staffing, LSS, Lean Six Sigma. So I am partnered fully with a company called Lean Alaska that provides certification training in Lean Six Sigma, Scrum, change management, and a few other things as well. Things that the industry is really asking for. What's unique about us is we are recognized by almost every major body of knowledge in those three areas. So we're certified out the wazoo. Every single industry standard we have met or exceeded. Our master black belts are probably some of the best in the entire world that train these programs. And so what we wanted to do is I wanted to partner with somebody that I really believed in. And Lean Alaska is the company that provides the training, also a veteran-owned company, good friend of mine. And we always wanted to work together. So we've created sort of this full spectrum, closed loop system, if you will. So veterans or transitioning service members come in, they get their training, get their certifications, then they move over to the Lean Synergy side, which is all the employment services. So that's where we talk about resumes, LinkedIn optimization, approach, how do I figure out what I want to do when I grow up? And then of course, the actual staffing side of the house where I'll go out, engage corporate America, secure contracts from them, and then place the veterans directly in front of them. Now, what's cool about the employment services for Lean Synergy is nothing is charged to the veterans ever for any service that we provide whatsoever. Even our training, even though our training is for profit and there is a charge for that, 85% of all of that is covered through GI benefits, whether it's the GI Bill, credentialing assistance with the Army, the Air Force Cool programs with Space Force, Coast Guard, and Air Force. So it's very rarely that a veteran actually invests any dollars in us at all, just their time.
That's crazy.
Wow, man,
I was going to ask you about that too, because I come from a Scrum background, and had some of those certifications, so I know how much they cost, and
Right.
It's cool that those are being covered.
Yeah, I got a couple belts myself.
The government to approve you, right? You have to go through all these stop gaps and filters before the government will approve for you to receive federal funds to put on that training. So you have to meet certain standards to even get to that point. And we've exceeded all of those, which is, it's kind of cool to represent that.
So are you seeing a lot of jobs for Lean and Scrum still, or it seemed like that died down for a little while?
I think that there's one area where it's growing though, which is it's kind of a surprising industry, and it's medical.
Mm,
It's always been in medical. It's always been there.
mhm.
There's always been that thought process and that desire for those tools and methodologies. But that's an
Right.
industry where they're starting to go, okay, we need to do a lot more with less, and we need to do a
Hmm.
lot more better. And so in that world, it's if I had to isolate to one area that's growing, that's one of them. And then, of course, you got manufacturing, supply chain, and logistics.
Right.
Anytime you need to cut um, activities, investments, or people, lean and scrum and change management automatically come into play. And it's
Yep.
those methodologies that can make those transformations effective, long lasting, and then you can actually identify what waste to actually cut because not all waste is bad.
Right. So, what do you find are some common challenges for veterans transitioning from military life to civilian life?
It's twofold if I were to give you like my top two. One is definitely veterans finding their joy. Like, what do they want to do? So many of them come out and do what they can do what they know,
Hmm.
but they don't take the time to get reintroduced to themselves to find out what is it that I'm actually going to enjoy. I know what I can do,
Right.
so I've got that to fall back on, but what am I really going to love? So that's one of the things that I find is the biggest challenge that doesn't get talked about enough. The second thing is skills translation. Okay, I have all this stuff. I know how to do all these things. I have these experiences, but how do I translate that so corporate America actually gives a damn about it? So those would be my top two main issues that I see day in and day out for the last 5 years.
Okay. What type of skills do you see that veterans have that translate well into like corporate America?
Well, there's two different sides of that. You got your hard skills and you got your soft skills. What's unique about veterans, especially compared to recent generations, and I don't mean to talk down or sideways or anything else. There's just a different set of soft skills that veterans come with. They're resilient, they're tenacious, they show up to work, they understand long hours, they understand problem solving, they attack problem solving from different angles, they make decisions under pressure. There's a lot of these intangibles, if you will, soft skills that veterans come into play. Excuse me,
Right.
that bring into play that are unique. But then you also got the technical side of the house. We've got guys that are, moving satellites in space. We've got guys that obviously can exchange fire with the best of them. And you've got the
Right.
entire support structure, whether it is supply chain and logistics, fuels, accounting, finance, counseling, social work. I mean, there's anything that you can do on the outside, there's a version of it on the inside of our gates. So there's so
Hmm.
many technical skills that come out of the service as well. And being able to translate those smartly and to demonstrate that there's a return on the investment for those companies hiring them, that's where the magic is.
Yeah, that's way cool. And you think about like Six Sigma and Lean. I mean, you think about variability reduction, right? I mean, a military service member or veteran would certainly understand about that, right? I like to kind of think of Lean too as like you look at a no hitter. How does a Major League Baseball pitcher throw a no hitter, right? I mean, they do the same thing the same way every time. That's the only way that you can throw a no hitter in baseball, right? Sure, practice helps, but I think that's kind of what lean's about, right? I mean, just kind of variability reduction. You talk about going lean and making cuts or being able to have the ability to decide what's important and what's not. I mean, lean is kind of key, isn't it?
Well, I think the last statement that you made, I think, is more significant than the others, which is, knowing what changes to make, what changes not to make, what actually is waste, what actually isn't. And really it just
Hmm.
comes down to is what is the customer getting out of the activity? If the customer is not getting anything out of it, it's potentially waste. And what lean does is it helps you focus on the right things for the right reasons at the right time. And then when you have variables that are introduced, whether it's inadvertently or on purpose or just environmental, you know how to address those. There's tools and processes to engage that so that you can pull in the team, make the appropriate changes. But to your former point, veterans do it all day, every day, especially in combat environments.
With the lean system, so are you providing like consultation services for companies and then hiring like scrum masters from your pool of people that you have for veterans, or how does that work? Are you like you doing coaching for companies or what?
Both. Well, all three, based on what you said. Our master black belts go out and they consult for a myriad of companies, which kind of keeps us relevant. Also lets us know what tools and methodologies are being applied out there and what makes a lot of sense. We're also trying to develop this concept, Jared, of almost becoming a broker. So if you think
Hmm.
about all of these veterans that come into our program, they go through our black belt. Maybe some of them go through the master black belt program, and now we just got this abundance of talent surrounding us that are part of our alumni, our family, if you will. And so we'd
Right.
love to create an opportunity where companies can engage us and say, hey, can you meet me where I'm at? Can you come to
Right.
Minnesota? Can you come to Hawaii? Can you come to my manufacturing plant? And so we can have these consultants that come from the service that have the appropriate certification. And what's unique about Lean Alaska and what we do as well is we help them build a portfolio. So they're working on real projects while they're
Hmm.
securing this training, and they can actually go to companies and say, look, I have this experience on this particular kind of project or projects. And then there was a third part that you mentioned that I don't think I answered, but I forgot it.
Uh, I don't
You might have
remember
to.
either.
I talk really fast.
No, that's fine. I think like the coaching, I think was the third part of it, but I think you kind of hit it too. So are you just building like a big or I hate using the word resource, a people pool, right? Uh, I hate it when corporations refer to people as resources. It drives me nuts. But
Yeah.
uh, are you just building? Is it like contract to hire positions mostly, or is it just contract positions?
Well, it depends on what you're asking about. If you look at what I'm trying to do on the staffing side of the house, is really I'm trying to take that talent pool that comes through the certifications program and I ask them what they want. Do they want contract positions? Do they want full-time positions? Do they want to go out and be a consultant? Do they want to start their own business? Do they just
Hmm.
want full-time employment with decent security and benefits? And that's what I go out and secure and what I chase. So, if you take sort of some of the lean processes and you ask yourself, what is the voice of the customer? Well, typically the voice of the customer is the one paying the bills, but we're trying to treat the veteran as the voice of the customer. So telling
Right.
us what they're looking for. So what I do a lot of times, I call them alumni interviews. So as they come through the program, they sit down with me and I ask them, okay, where, what kind of environment, what kind of money, tell me what it is that you're looking for. Use this magic wand and tell me what you're after. Well, then
Mhm.
I go out to the marketplace and I try to find those opportunities.
What kind of challenges does a veteran, I mean, what kind of challenges do they go through when they're trying to look for employment? That's got to be tough because you've got military life and then you're coming back to civilian world. What's that like for a combat veteran per se?
It's hard, but you don't know it's hard until you're kind of in the middle of it. Like you don't even realize in the beginning whether it's going to be hard or not. You just sort of have this, I don't want to say abundance of confidence, but you've been told quite a bit that you've got technical skills, leadership skills, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be fine when you get out, which is a load of crap. It's actually really, really hard. Then you take a look at what the economy is doing and how just the general economy, take the veteran community out of it. How are they doing? Well, if they're
Right.
having a rough time and then you take 250,000 veterans, that's how many transition every single year, about 684 every day that transition out of uniform into the
Wow.
civilian marketplace. So you take that number and you throw that in with all the civilian job seekers as well. And in this particular day and age, let's talk about what's happening with the government roles, contracts, positions, and all
Right.
of that new talent that's being dumped into the marketplace as well. So, what you really struggle with is standing out. How do I take my skills, my capabilities, and stand out so that I can get the appropriate amount of attention? It's really, really hard to do that when you have 684 veterans joining the workforce with you every single day. Veterans make up a significant portion of the workforce that's out there. And so when I don't want to say when you dilute it, that's not what I'm looking for, but when you saturate the market with that
Mhm.
many job seekers, that is the number one challenge with the veterans is how do they rise up and how do we get companies to seek them out first? You talk about diversity and equity and inclusion and all of these big buzzwords that are playing out there in the community right now. Why can't we add veterans into that mix? That is a diverse portion of our society. Well, we don't because it's not sexy and it's not a buzzword, uh, but it's very much needed.
Yeah, for sure. Have you noticed any particular corporations that stand out as really military friendly employers for our veterans that are listening?
Well, there's the ones that look like it. I'll talk about that, and then there's the ones that are. So I often reference veteran friendly versus veteran ready. So veteran friendly are the ones that they have, a splash page that says we hire veterans and that sort of thing, but they have no plan and they have no really full understanding of what veterans bring to the table. And then you have the companies that are veteran ready that have entire programs, dedicated talent acquisition teams that specifically go after those veteran communities, and they know how to onboard them. They know what baggage they bring, and they know what skill sets that they bring. Those are all really significant. But you have companies like, and I'm not afraid to say it, like Amazon. Amazon hires the hell out of our veteran community. They chew them up and spit them out within 24 months. The amount of veterans
Mm.
that start and stay beyond a 36-month mark in Amazon is extremely low. In fact, it should be quizzically low. People should actually be engaging and asking, why is it that way? So you have
Right.
companies that have this really wonderful cover, if you will, but once you get into the pages and get a couple of chapters deep, you realize, whoa, they're really abusing that talent pool. So you have companies like that. Then you've got the let's say the DoD sector, so the Boeings, the Lockheed Martins, the Northrop Grummans, and those kinds of things. Of
Yeah.
course, they have an affinity for the veteran. They tend to treat them a little bit better because they need their clearances. They need what they have. They need their access back to that marketplace. So you have organizations like that. Then you've got a few out there that I'm pretty proud of, like Wells Fargo. I think does an amazing job with both learning and development, onboarding veterans, and actually pursuing those. And there's a few other companies, but they really split up into kind of those three categories: the ones that act like it, the ones that actually are, and the ones that are trying. I will tell you, there's one category of this community that I serve. I call it the Big Five. So you have the veterans, transitioning service member communities. You have the veteran and military spouse of age dependents and caregivers. Well, the military spouse packs the highest unemployment rate. In fact, the military spouse packs an unemployment rate in some cases 2 and 3 times higher than our disabled community on the marketplace. So if you pick any
Wow.
city that you want and you compare the disabled community, and I'm talking folks that are from minor disabilities to severe disabilities, and you
Right.
compare their unemployment rate to the military spouse unemployment rate, the military spouse unemployment rate will be 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 times higher.
Why is that?
They move. Companies
Oh,
don't understand that there is a resume that isn't traditional. So companies like to look at stability. They like to look at folks that have
Right.
stayed in one spot and with one company. Well, organizations tend to not let spouses, military spouses, stay remote. Remote really wasn't a thing until COVID happened, and even now you see a lot of those remote roles going away. So if I could just make a more succinct statement instead of getting in the mud like that, military spouses move every 2 years. And more
yeah.
often than not, the organizations that they work with don't allow them to move that employment with them. And so because of that, you end up with large gaps of employment. You have multiple places of employment. Your tenure is shorter, and so they just don't look as attractive in the traditional sense. But what they're mistaken on is these men and women that are in that military spouse category, these are some tough ass people. I mean,
Yeah.
these are people that can set up an office on cardboard boxes in a closet while they wait for their household goods to come back from Korea. You know what I mean? Like these are some really
Hmm.
brilliant, resilient, and more often than not, this is the part that blows my mind. They are the highest educated segment of our military community, and they have the highest unemployment rate across the board in just about any city that you want to look at, 2 to 4 times higher.
That's wow. I never even thought about that. How chopped your resume could be
Most
in those
don't.
situations. Yeah. But the talent is there, and definitely the tough and the grit, for sure. I mean, why those people are enduring and fighting for our country. And then I wasn't aware of the problems that they faced coming back from war or just in general service. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing kind of how America treats veterans. Like it seemed back in the day it was way better than it is now. To me it kind of has gotten to this chew 'em up, spit 'em out. And then, with current administration cutting benefits for vets and, um are you seeing a bigger uptake in like your services on helping veterans kind of receive that support? Not just from jobs, but like mental health care, like PTSD treatment. Do you do anything around that as well, or just mostly job focused?
What we're seeing is a almost an awakening in mental health. So I got out 5 years ago. And when I got out after 23 years, I can tell you that there is a sizable difference in the focus on mental health just in the last 5 years. So the amount of resources are trying to match the demand. But we also, as veterans, we don't know that we need it either. So there's a lot of awareness education that needs to happen.
Hmm.
So Jared, you asked directly, do we help with the mental health capacity? If you go back to my original purpose and my life's purpose in terms of my professional environment, it's to impact veteran suicide, to impact divorce rates, to impact and underemployment, and to keep families together. That common thread right there is mental health. It's making
Yeah.
sure people are stable and that they can provide for themselves. So what we have done, and over the last 5 years, I have partnered with organizations ranging from coast to coast that provide segmented components of mental health. So PTSD is a really bastardized and
Yeah. It's a catch-all, right?
misunderstood
Yeah.
statement. So PTSD can come from a car accident. It can come
Yep.
from watching your child get hurt. And of course, it can come from war as well. So there are varying levels of PTSD. There are various treatments. There's a lot of different kind of things that need to go into it. Some people respond to cognitive therapy. Some people, need some physical therapy. They need a lot of different practices to approach their PTSD. So I don't think we see an increase in PTSD cases. I just think what we are seeing is a massive awakening to mental health and how important it is. And plus, as the generational gaps have shrunk, if you take the Great Generation, that was a very large chunk of years, a few dozen years. Each time since, our generational gaps have gotten smaller. So technology has really shortened the speed in which we change those categories. Our
Hmm.
generation is the last one to know what it's like to live without the internet. It's the last
Right.
one to know what a corded phone was. So we are the last ones that will probably ever see a double digit generational category. I think our generations, you talk about Generation X. I don't remember how many years that covers, 11 or 12 or something like that, but I don't think we'll ever see a double digit generation again.
Yeah, that's for sure. How did you get into this, Jeremy? I mean, so like you were in the Air Force, and I think it's just absolutely incredible that you're helping veterans and military service members find positions in corporate America. How did you kind of come into this?
Well, as I left the service, I was a recruiter in the service, so I understood what it was like to go find people to serve, which is a giant pain in the ass, and it's even harder nowadays because people just aren't mentally or physically qualified to join. Less than 1% of
Hmm.
the population serves. So
It's
I got to
crazy.
see I got to see the front end of what that looks like. And then as I
Hmm.
transitioned out of service, it wasn't that I had enough awareness of this life's mission that I have now. I just didn't. I was just looking for a job and I wanted to provide for my family. I just happened to get lucky and I ran into another buddy that was very like-minded like me. We had a lot of experience with recruiting, which is basically sales, is solving problems. And so he said, "Hey, come start this company with me." So we started a company called Fusion Cell, and the whole concept is exactly what I've built everything else around, which is how do we bridge the gap between corporate America and the veteran needs? And so we just started placing veterans in as many companies and organizations as we could. We started educating them. So really, from the moment I took my uniform off, I've been in this space, and the market, if you will, is the transitioning service member space. So I've stayed in it. I've stayed connected for a lot of reasons. One, I'm comfortable there. I love the people. I love serving. I know what I'm doing, and I know what they need now, which I didn't in the beginning, but I do now. And so I've been able to kind of develop a voice for it. The reason I got into it is the same that I told you is to impact those 3 to 4 areas, and hopefully, my life's work when I'm done will look back and go, we may not know who we positively impacted or not, but we probably did make a change.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love how you guys are kind of like the voice of people going through that, that have served our country, and then you can differentiate, which companies are military friendly versus military ready. That's That's just awesome and so
Yeah, we
positive.
sucked them up pretty fast.
Yeah, and like I love the passion that you have for, helping people as well.
I'm glad you see that.
It
I
really comes
always
through.
hope that comes through.
Yeah, it does. So, what are some common misconceptions that employers might have about hiring veterans?
My number one that I hate the most is that they don't have to pay them as much because they already have a pension. So if somebody
I never
wants to
even thought
give
about that.
me,
That's
Is
interesting. Yeah,
is that actually a thing?
oh
Is
my
do
gosh,
they?
it
it's
is, it
crazy.
not only is it a thing, but it's a thing at some seriously high levels in
It's
corporate America.
ridiculous.
And it's
That
just,
is fucked up.
thank you. If
Exactly.
somebody
That's
wanted to get
bullshit.
me on a soapbox, they could put me on that one and I could speak on it for a long time. But
Yeah, I bet.
my number one pet peeve is that underemployment, and typically I'm talking about compensation as well as talking about not giving a veteran enough responsibilities, which is often tied to compensation. But um, that is the number one thing, Jared, that drives me bonkers. Is I will have a candidate. Let's say it's a colonel that's coming out of the Air Force, or somebody that's like a private, an E4, E5, E6, something like that. Your junior enlisted
Hmm.
ranks, and we bring them out of service. They sit down, they go through multiple levels of interviews with these organizations, and then they have the audacity to come back to me and say, and some of them have made the mistake of speaking it so clearly that they're calling it exactly what it is that they're thinking. Well, since
Right.
they already have a pension, I believe that the advertised salary range that we have out there, we can probably stay around the bottom. What do you think? They don't
I
even
think you can
talk
kiss
about
my
how,
ass.
I mean,
Right.
Dude,
they're clearly
that
already interested in
Right.
this candidate. Um,
Right.
we're not even talking about skill sets or value or return
Right.
on the investment. You're just trying to make a bargain off a veteran. Um, and so, fellas, that part pisses me off quite a bit.
yeah, that's a punch to the
Yeah.
gut, man.
Yeah,
That's
and I think we've
ridiculous.
talked about stuff like that on our episodes before. The corporate greed that's going on right now is unbelievable, right? They just don't want to pay people what they're worth, and they're more than willing to pay the CEOs and the C levels plenty of money, but when it comes to everybody else that actually honestly runs the companies, that pay gap is just crazy. And to hear that they do that with veterans is just it's un-American, honestly. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous. It's like, show me who's doing it. I want to go beat them up. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
we
Dumb.
could put quite a line in front of you.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
do you kind of have any examples or stories of like success stories that of veterans that you've worked with that have had a really positive experience with this? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, we have. I don't know if I can say thousands yet, but I can say hundreds very comfortably. What's unique about what we do is we really sit down with the veteran and try to understand what it is that they're after. Now, this sounds all fluffy and happy go lucky, but if we can find out what their real motivation is, what they're really trying to accomplish with this second wave of employment, then I get to stand right next to a hiring manager, or let's pretend I get to stand in that office with the veteran next to me. I get to stand right next to him and be proud of that. And I understand what the company wants because I asked them a shit ton of questions. They told me exactly what it is that they need. We found a veteran that fits those needs, and then those guys marry up. I'll give you one example. I'll give you a top level example. So we had a colonel who was coming out of the service, tons of deployments, a lot of experience all over the world, but a resume that if you tried to read it as a civilian, you'd have no idea what the hell this guy did. Like, how is it that he ran a $13 billion program? Most civilians just don't even understand it. It just sounds like fluff. And so when it sounds like fluff, it becomes noise and then noise gets discarded. Well, we were able to take this guy's experience. And so I'm tying this back into lean. He actually got to interview with Maersk, which is one of the world's largest 3PL, 4PL, hell, 5PL logistics companies in the world.
Mhm.
So you look at all the shipping containers and the big boats, they all say Maersk. That's who I'm referencing. Well, he got to
Right.
come in. He interviewed for a couple roles that he definitely could have do, but they were below him. Maersk saw his value. Maersk understood what this guy was probably capable of, And we were able to explain to them all of your suspicions are true, but we were able to give them specific examples, specific projects, specific areas in the world that this person had conducted those kinds of operations. And where I'm going with this, Ian, is that they ended up hiring him for a position that was 4 levels above what he applied to. And now he runs the Lean Solutions program for one of the world's largest logistics
Wow,
straight out of the
Awesome.
airport. It's
dude,
super
that's
smart,
awesome.
man. You know, I'll tell you, I don't know why this popped in my head, but I want to say it. The hardest community to serve from my lane and corporate America's lane is our junior enlisted. The ones that don't do a full career, the ones that
Right.
that come in and they do anywhere from 4 to 12 years is what I would call my, mid-tier junior enlisted type folks. They're so difficult to serve because they're so hard to find. They're not in your traditional like LinkedIn's. They don't have professional profiles in other areas. They just do their jobs and they go about their business. They're the hardest ones to serve. They're the hardest ones to find success stories with. So a few success stories that we have had is I've been involved with government contracting now for about 3.5 years. And so we've been able to secure some really cool government contracts directly to our staffing company where I can grab our people and say, look, if you're willing to go back to the sandbox, we can put you in an environment where we can build one hell of a resume very quickly, and we can do it with the kind of pay you're probably not going to find here in the States. So
Hmm.
we've taken people, and I'm talking like anything from food services to HVAC technicians to carpenters to power generation type people to include, unmanned pilots or fuel exchangers, things like that. And we've been able to take where the marketplace in America might be, say 75 to $95,000 a year and send them over to a place where they can get tax-free employment, all their food and housing covered, and they make 150 to $200,000 a year. And they go do
Wow.
this for a couple years, and then they
Hmm.
come back as this younger person in the workforce with a fairly legitimate resume, a lot of
Right.
money in the bank. And when they have that money in the bank, they have the freedom of movement, the freedom of choice. They're not backed into a corner of having to do one thing or another. And then that also impacts mental health, suicide rates, families, divorce rates. It's everything comes back to being able to provide for yourself and to stand on your own 2 feet,
Yeah,
that level of pride, whether you're a man or a woman.
that's amazing, man. So how do these people find you? I mean, you said they're harder to find, right? So you use LinkedIn pretty much for that, or?
Well, junior enlisted, if that's what you're referencing specifically, they're a
Hmm.
pain in the ass to find because they're told to take advantage of that LinkedIn profile, which is, a professional networking site. It's your digital resume, your digital footprint, if you will, professionally.
Hmm.
They're just not there. They just don't use it.
Right.
And now you have this generational change where you've got this Facebook type community, you have an Instagram, you've got your Snapchat, you got your TikToks, you got your Twitter.
Right.
Each one of these sort of facilitates a different kind of community, a different kind of experience. So there's no one place, Ian, that I can go find junior enlisted and
Right.
communicate to them in mass. You're kind of got to be all over.
Yeah. What's the best way that, say, anyone listening to this show can, you know, navigate a family member or someone that's a junior enlisted, like you said, to your services?
The best way is to find me on LinkedIn. I'm listed on there as Jeremy Monty, Monte, Montgomery. I have 25 to 30 some thousand followers out there. We have a really large network. I,
Awesome.
I I've referenced that follower count not for vanity metrics, but for the fact that I am not very many degrees away from finding somebody that can help them with a solution that I might not have. So I very deliberately have built a network that allows me to be, 7 degrees away from Kevin Bacon, which by the way, I'm only 4 degrees, which I thought was kind of cool. Um, so if I don't have it, I know how to get it, or I know how to get somebody closer to it. So if somebody would go to Jeremy Monty Montgomery on LinkedIn, you can find me, and that's where I would have my most amount of influence and ability to connect you.
That's awesome. Well, we would certainly encourage uh, people in that position to do that and utilize your services for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, I think you're helping Jeremy to address a lot of issues that the vets are facing, right? The homelessness, uh, is a big thing right now with vets as well. And so I think, like you said at the beginning, at the outset of this, is like if they have that job, right, they can provide, a place for themselves to live and their
Right.
families as well. So we can keep them off the streets.
That foundation is everything.
Do you ever find difficult situations where you're trying to correlate military experience to civilian life?
Yeah, I think where we started, if you look at my previous company, Fusion Cell, which was deeply rooted in the special operations community. In fact, it was founded to help us coming out of operations get plugged into meaningful employment. That community specifically, which is just wildly educated and incredibly capable, but it doesn't read so well on paper. Like there's just certain things
Right.
that these people have done and experienced that it's really hard to capture in a way that corporate America can see that there's a return on that investment. But I think the special operations community, which is uh, pun intended, a very special community, is sometimes undervalued. And damn it, I guess I could make that
Yeah.
example in a lot of segments within the military community.
Right.
Right.
I might have got away from your question. So if I did,
No,
redirect me.
I don't think you did. I think you answered it just right. In fact, you kind of answered it earlier with the colonel going to Maersk. I was just kind of like wanted to touch more on it because, like you said, when he initially submitted his resume, it didn't read very well, right? Like people didn't understand, the $13 billion contract or whatever. Obviously he had levels and levels of leadership and an amount of experience to share with that company and contribute. But then you said they went up 4 levels, right? Adopting an even heavier leadership role than anticipated. And I think that's just incredible. I can only imagine the challenges that you would face, if you've got someone in a specific military department that, like you said, they come to you and they ask, you ask them what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve as far as employment. And, that specific military department doesn't even apply in civilian life. So it just seems like a heck of a challenge. And it seems like you're there to help facilitate that and streamline that for them. And I think that's incredible.
Well, you make me think of something else that we offer. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and it's called reverse engineering your job description. Most veterans, I hate using the word most, but I do kind of mean that. It's a gross generalization, but a lot of veterans come out and they're not quite sure what they want to do. Even if their career field does translate outside, they've been doing it for 5, 6, 8, 20 years. Maybe they don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
Right.
So there's components of that self-discovery. So a lot of individuals that end up coming to me, they're referred to me because I approach things very differently at the front end. A lot of folks will come out of the service, they'll find people like me that run staffing companies or say that they're helping transitioning service members, and they go right into resumes, they go into LinkedIn optimization, and they go into applying for jobs. I don't give two shits about that at all for multiple layers of reasons. And what I try to accomplish with all of them is I reverse engineer their job description, which is a fancy way of saying I try to introduce themselves to themselves. Again, I try to get them to
Right.
imagine what their life is going to be outside of uniform. What the hell brought you joy? So we do this 5 step process, and I'll outline it here in hopefully less than 2 minutes. Step one, we take a joy inventory and we go all the way back to when they were a kid. Did you guys know that from the time that you're about 5 years old to about 7 year old as a man, we already determine what we think of the world and what we think the world thinks of us by the time we're 7 years
Hmm.
old. So I ask these men
Wow.
and women to go as far back as possible to really remember what brought them joy and list
Mhm.
all of those things out. And we use our timelines to trigger those joy moments. So it's not a job title or a place of business or an environment. It's what you actually did that I'm trying to pursue with these guys and gals. What did you do that you really love to do? If you could do it today, would you really enjoy it? So we try to come up with this whole list. That's step one. Step two is forgetting about step one. And step two is going back out to the world and going out to all the people that they know and trust, and maybe even some of those people. And I encourage this, go find some of those people that might not say good things about you and ask them,
Yeah.
what do you think I should be
Definitely.
doing? What am I strong at? Where was I frustrating when you were working with me? When did I have good communication? When did I have bad communication? Basically, you go out to the world and you say, hey, what do you think of me? And what do you think I would enjoy
Yeah.
doing? And what do you think my contribution to the world should be? Step three is taking the two of those steps and blending them together. So now you know what you think and you know what the world thinks, and you try to find common lines. And what we're trying to do is find some stovepiping, if you will, some skill sets, some categories, some joy, some things that you really love, and then you have the feedback from the outside world as well. And you say, what job descriptions exist that give me a 10% match, a 20% match? Now, getting to 100% is ridiculous. You probably would rarely ever get over 50%, but you're trying to find the highest degree of match. And then in step four, you take that elements of matches, maybe it's one or two different areas, and you go nuts. You go network in there and you find people that are doing it and you talk to them. What is your day really like? What kind of gaps do I have in my experience in order to get to where you are? And one of two things always happens. And there's really not more than that. There's usually just one of two things. One, they get energized to go deeper, or two, they get de-energized and they're just not as interested in it as they thought, which is still a wonderful thing because then we redirect and we go back and we go chase down another one.
Mhm.
Step five is once you find those lanes, then you just get wicked serious. That's where the resume and the LinkedIn optimization and the deliberate networking starts to come into place. And maybe even in step five, we start actually applying for those. So it's that 5-step process through reverse engineering your job description that you get with Lean Synergy that and we don't charge for any of this. I mean, it's a shit ton of time to spend with these people, but it
Right.
makes a huge difference. Did you know there is a extremely high percentage? Some people would say as high as 75 to 85% of all veterans that secure their first post-military job will leave it within 24 months. I'm trying to take
Wow.
out of that.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's wow, that's kind of intense to think about actually. Now, do you think that's just making the transition from, uniform to non-uniform?
Of course it is, and it's not doing it well.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah,
I got to be
like you
careful that I
said.
make this caveat, though. When we get out of the service, what I want everybody, if any veterans are watching this, the one thing I want you to absorb from anything that I say today is once you get out of service, you are a free agent. Do whatever the hell you want for whoever the
Mhm.
hell you want, whenever the hell
Yeah.
you want. So it's not a bad thing if you change jobs at 2 years. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the majority of those people that change those jobs are doing it because they're unhappy, and that part we can do something about.
Well, and I like your winning formula here too, because you go through several steps, and I like navigating uh, the applicants to go back to previous employers and stuff and ask for feedback. I think that's so important to, where did I go wrong here, or what could I have done better? I think that's absolutely incredible that you do that, and then you line up the percentages, and that's very lean. That's a very lean process too, by the way. I think that's absolutely amazing that you're doing that for people, and it seems like, I mean, you say hundreds. I mean, that's a very successful outcome. I think that's awesome, Jeremy.
Yeah, we talk to multiple veterans every day for just about every day of the year. So it is a big number now.
Yeah,
That
that's
is way
awesome. I
cool.
love that 5-step process. That's pretty cool, and that you have that because, I've been a hiring manager, quite a bit in my life, and my biggest thing when I hire people is how well do they work with teams, right? Like how
Right.
well do they function in a team, and I almost never have to ask that with military vets because I know they're already experienced with working in teams and working with other people, and so that's usually not even on my radar when I talk to them.
If you take a look at
Because
the
I can
United
train
States
you,
Army,
right? Yeah, I can train you to do whatever I need you to do.
right?
Like if you're a halfway intelligent person, like it's not difficult. So my whole dynamic is how do you work well with the team that's already there? And because if that's dysfunctional, then they're not going to last. So
Well, if you look at the United States Army just as one example, it's the largest organization in the entire United States, and it is one of the most diverse organizations in the entire United States.
yeah.
I remember when I went to boot camp, there was a guy from Kentucky. His first pair of shoes that he owned came from the service. Uh,
Wow.
That's crazy.
the first black person I bunked with was in the service. Uh,
Hmm.
so you get exposed to just a completely different world and you have to work together. And in some cases in our life, depending on where we're at with our careers, it's legitimately life or death based on whether or not you can work with the man left or right of you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I've seen combat veterans and stuff in a supervisor setting, and I've seen them coach for engagement very well. I've seen them give recognition, constructive feedback. I mean, this is not a problem for people with that leadership experience coming from our military service members. That's for sure.
Do you
I love
see,
how you
this is
there.
just a general question, do you see like servant leadership a lot with military veterans, or is that something that you guys help them learn or know much
I
about?
think I think organically, as you're brought up through the service from the junior ranks to the mid level, you're almost you're submerged in that servant component because the mid-level sergeant has got to make sure that you can do the job that you need to do so that he can do his job. And so you almost are constantly putting yourself at service, putting yourself and making yourself available so that individual can grow up through that. And it doesn't stop all the way to the top. Like it's just this continuous thing that we get. Now, when civilian community references servant leadership and the military references servant leadership, we view it a little bit differently. It means the same thing, but our
Right.
experience with it is very different. Um, so, for instance, in a lot of our servant leadership, we can serve by being directive. I can say, Jared, I need you to go do X, Y, and Z. This is why I need you to do it, and I need it done by this time, and this is how you're going to do it. Um, that is serving in some ways is too. It's very directive, but you also
Right.
have a known outcome that you want. Um, I think it gets bastardized a little bit in the civilian marketplace where you talk about servant leadership, where they think that they need to, wash your feet for you or hold your hand while you experience the hardships of whatever task that you're doing. That's not
Right.
servant leadership.
Yeah, I seen that a lot in like my last job. Like we hired Brene Brown to come in, right, and do like this big servant leadership training. We also hired a big company, what was it, Scrum Inc., to come in and do Scrum at scale. And it was amazing to me, like being an agile leader in my past and having to deal with Scrum, like how much the higher ups like just didn't support it or understand it. Right. And it's just like, if you guys support this, then you will be successful as a company. If you don't, then you won't.
That's
And
why we teach our
as I,
practitioners.
yeah, as I look at their stock price today, hey, guess what they didn't embrace? So
We tell our practitioners that if you do not have the majority of senior leadership support, you do not have any change to manage.
yeah,
It's going to happen and then it's going to fall apart as soon as that particular change activity is done. It won't last, it won't sustain, it won't
yeah,
save money. You won't be removing variances permanently. Waste will continue to be waste. You might even end up developing new ones. But if senior leadership doesn't back it, there is no change that will be sustained.
yeah.
Now, you guys primarily offer lean, or do you guys do any Stephen Covey or anything like that as far as training? Or
Well, we've got some different things like FAMIA, Six Thinking Hats, and some other programs that we teach because those methodologies support the change management environment. So if I asked you guys to walk away from remembering one thing about us is we're a change management company, we're a
Right.
change management training company, and all those methodologies really blend together. And so you utilize them almost interchangeably. So while Lean focuses on this and Six Sigma focuses on that, CPI focuses on this, and Scrum does some other things, you tend to end up blending all of those tools together. And then what I want to do on the staffing side is I want to communicate to corporate America, look, I've got a talent pool that not only has what you're advertising, but they've got all this other stuff too. And any
Right.
organization that has a lean practitioner that's allowed to have a voice, all of them function better.
that's awesome, man. Well, and I know that we ran you a little long on our meeting here, but Jeremy, I really want to thank you for stopping by. Everybody, Jeremy Montgomery with Lean Synergy Staffing, helping military veterans. I think that's totally awesome. I really dig the emotional aspect of it as well. Talking about the mental health, and I would have to agree with you, man. Being comfortable and having a job can set so many foundations for somebody and help them transition from military service to civilian life. I mean, that's just absolutely incredible. So I want to thank you for being here with us. And this has been episode 31 with Common X with Jared and Ian. Are we going to do Jared's 5? Do we have time for that?
Yeah.
You down for a little Jared's 5?
It out already, man.
Well, I know,
Nobody
but I
gets
was
away
thinking
without going through Jared's 5.
I know, and I was thinking of it because I was like getting kind of like it's kind of an emotional thing for me when I think about it. Because I mean, you think about that person that puts on a uniform, fights for their country, and they go out there with a gun, and you expect them to like protect your rights and protect your country. It got so serious that I almost forgot about Jared's 5. I can't believe it. Jeremy, are you down for Jared's 5?
Get your life together, Ian.
All right. I'm going to get my shit together. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask you 5 questions, Jeremy. One question is going to be from the previous guest. One question is going to be for the next guest. And then some fun kind of Gen X shit in between. So, Jared, go ahead. Take it away.
All right, man. Here we go. What was your favorite movie of all time?
Rocky. All of them.
Nice.
Yep. Yes.
Yep. Adrian.
Yeah. I love the character. I love the story. I love the resilience. I even love the story about how he wrote it and kept it for so long until he knew it was going to be delivered his way.
Dude, and a huge shout out to my man, Dolph Lundgren. Just saying. Yeah.
The Russian. All right. Saturday morning cartoons. What was your favorite?
Ooh, goodness. I'm a sucker for the old Tom and Jerry. I have no idea why. And then one that most people may not know is Fraggle Rock.
Oh, yeah.
The Dozers.
Yeah, down on Fraggle Rock, man.
Yep. Love Fraggle Rock. I remember that one. That's funny. All right. What's one thing that people don't know about you that maybe they should?
I was a paid dancer.
Jeremy, we got to talk.
We're just going to leave it to that, huh?
Man.
I'm definitely not going any further.
That's good. All right. If you could tell your teenage self anything, what would it be?
The way that you love your mother will be the way that you love the world and treat the world. Pay attention to it.
Wow, I like that. That's good.
Awesome. All right. This one's a little racy. This is from our last guest, Wisecracking with Will. His question was, what age were you when you lost your virginity?
18.
Nice.
He was quick with it. Yeah, Wisecracking with Winter. That was...
Wisecracking with Winter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember because I was legal.
Yep. That's funny. All right. So what's your question for our next guest?
Let's see. What can they do to support the veteran community more?
Yeah, that's a good one.
And to remember,
awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
Veterans don't need handouts or hand-ups. They just need an opportunity.
That's awesome, buddy. Well, now we'll close it out. Thanks, Jeremy, for joining us. Sorry we kept you long. This has been episode 31 with Common X with Jared and Ian, and everybody have an awesome day.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the podcast, Common X with Jared and Ian. We really appreciate you guys and would love your support. So make sure you click that subscribe or like button or follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube and Spotify, because that would really help us out. And that helps us bring more episodes to you guys every week, and hopefully from content that you guys want to see. So reach out, TikTok, YouTube, leave comments. If there's anything that you guys want to see or any guests that you want us to try and get on, let us know. We do have a good lineup coming. So thank you again. We love you guys. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you next time. And remember, common sense isn't that common. So that's why we're bringing common sense back from Generation X.